Hello everybody. Today I'm going to show you a quick video of how to use LangChain with Flowise and Pinecone vector database, and we're going to create a quick application that chats with multiple PDF documents, and we're going to be using multiple documents that we're going to be able to segregate and separate these documents, and I'll show you guys how. It's not only documents but other tools as well. We're going to be able to separate them in the vector database and then query specific documents, or all of them together or individual ones depending on your needs. Now Flowise is really cool tool that I discovered recently and been playing around with, and I think it's got a lot of potential. It's a little bit lightly documented at the moment, so it requires some trial and error to get things going, but it's all very much based on LangChain documentation and LangChain kind of functionality when it comes to tools, agents, memory, and it's pretty much laid out even like the LangChain documentation. So a really cool app. Now, to get things started, what you need is you need to clone it from you need to fork it from Flowise repository on GitHub. So you go to GitHub, Flowise AI, Flowise, and then you fork. You click this fork button over here. That will clone the repository into your own account, and if you already have cloned this, you can come in and click here to sync the fork, and this will update the fork with all of the latest data from the Flowise the repository. So once you clone it over, we're going to now use a web service called Render, and using Render we're going to create a new web service, and that's where we're going to deploy Flowise onto Render. Okay, and I'll show you how we can do that. I already have a test web service running here with Flowise application, and I will show you how to go about creating a new one. Now, first things first is we click here on New, and then we go ahead and, of course, we log in and create, and then we log in here as your account, and then go to New and select Web Service. Okay, you're then going to get to a Create New Web Service page. At this point, you should be able to connect your GitHub. So you can configure the account and connect either to GitHub or GitLab. Once you do connect that, you are then going to see the repositories listed here. What I will do is I will then connect to Flowise repository here, and we get a chance to put in a name, and we can do a Flowise test. For this one, we're going to keep the region west here, then the branch will be main, and the runtime will be a Node.js. So it's a JavaScript. And now the build commands are yarn build, and yarn start, and there's one more that we have to add. And that is yarn install. Okay, select starter. If you're just trying things out and testing things out with Render, then free will work, but it will reset or every 15 minutes or something like that. You have to. I think if it's inactive for 15 minutes, it resets, something like that. But the standard with the $7 a month gives you just enough to play around semi-seriously with this app. So a cool one where you can easily set up web services and deploy using GitHub. So now we're going to just click create web service down here, and after a few minutes of gobbledygook and the blah blah blah, go ahead and read it and see what comes down. And I will come back to you guys shortly. We're about halfway through the installation here on render, and as we're winding down towards the end, I just wanted to mention that it's a great opportunity to thank so far everybody and all the subscribers that I have. And it's at this point it's about 300 or so, and it's absolutely incredible to me that even that many people click the subscribe button, and I appreciate every one of you. And if you're new here, please go ahead and click that subscribe button. Leave a comment about what you'd like to see with some of these tools, and what you'd like to see me demonstrate with some of these tools or discuss in future videos. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys. Around the 5.5 minutes, you will see something like this. And then moments after that, you will see it completed with the "Your service is live" message, and we'll be able to see the live over here as well. And then you're going to have a link that you can then click on, and boom, you now have Flowise AI running on the web. And you can share this link, and you can have others come in and play with it. And now I'm going to show you just a little bit around, but probably people already know about some of the details and want to see the ins and outs. You have chat flows, where we're going to be able to specify our own. And then the marketplace already has some pre-built templates, which are fantastic to check out. You can do all kinds of cool stuff, and we're going to do some of that, especially revolving around the metadata filter load and metadata filter upsert. Fun name, but we're gonna upsert something into somebody's vector. All right, let's go over here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to actually load a database, and I'm going to load this database from my previous one. And what I will highly recommend, and I will show you guys later, that you should be using this function a whole lot, and that is export the database in order to save all your changes. Because if you come in and you refresh the repository and refresh the instance here on render, all of your information could potentially be deleted. Probably will be as well. As you saw with the new instance there, when I brought it up, there was nothing. But just by exporting the database and then loading it back up, which is just great, using a JSON file, you can save all your stuff and not lose all your hard work. Now let's go a little bit further, and let's do a multi-document chat. All right, so this is what the multi-document chat flow chart looks like. So what do we do now? Usually this this is read from the right side, and then it goes on to the left side. So the first thing that's going to be activated by our chain, and the main activation is going to be here, which is going to be our conversational retrieval QA chain. Okay, and this chain uses OpenAI. All right, and in this case, we're going to be using the DaVinci. So it's going to be using OpenAI to do the summarization, or to do some natural languaging. It's going to be using a Pinecone upsert document functionality, but we're going to be speaking to a Pinecone database here. We're going to be uploading multiple PDF files to the Pinecone database, as well as scraping a website. And all of that is going to be embedded using OpenAI as to be inserted into the Pinecone vector database. And the token text splitter is one of the text splitters that is available here in Flowise that's going to be able to handle the PDF files and the web scraper and break those down into chunks in order to be embedded and then uploaded into the Pinecone database and then processed using some natural language in our conversational QA chain. And again, I'll show you shortly how this is all going to come together in the application. So hang on. All right, to show you guys how I created this this flow chart right here. So I'm going to be hopping back and forth between these two instances. And what I'll do is I'll create new. I'll go here and create a new chat flow. And now we're going to be specifying that this is, again, a conversational retrieval QA chain. All right. And we're going to be plugging in all of the other things, and you're going to be able to see how easily it is to do so. So pretty cool tool. So first things first is we're going to be getting the conversational retrieval QA chain, right, as we saw in the other one. And this chain is going to need a language model for sure, right, because it's got the red asterisk next to it, and the vector store retriever. So we're going to now go ahead and find those. Now the language model, LLM, we're going to be using OpenAI, but there's all these other ones here, which is Azure, OpenAI, Cohere, and Hugging Face inference, which is something I'm going to be playing with further. The Hugging Face is a fantastic site with a whole bunch of cool utilities and language models, so something worth playing around with as well. So we're going to pop open here the OpenAI one, and then we're going to find the vector store retriever. Okay, and the vector stores are going to be over here. And so here we got the chroma, and chroma is the local one. There's an in-memory, which is I guess even somehow puts it into RAM, not sure, but I know chroma is the local database that can be created. Pinecone, that's a pay-to-play, very high functional production level vector database, so super cool. Supabase and Weaviate, neither one that I've used in the past, but probably pretty functional as well. So we're going to get our Pinecone upsert document. Okay. An upsert document just means that we're going to be uploading the documents to the database. We're going to be creating these things, okay? And I'll show you all about that later. So now what we do here is we connect OpenAI dot to the language model, and the vector store dot will connect to the Pinecone upsert document. Now this one requires now a document and embeddings. Okay, so embeddings, we can go down here, and I'll be using OpenAI embeddings. Again, we're going to link the embeddings. All right, and as you saw in the example, we have documents. We have 3 different documents that you can plug in into one document node on the Pinecone upsert document tile. So here we're going to go in, and we're going to pick the document loaders, and you can select all of these, or one, several, multiple. Play around with this. But in the case where I had earlier, what I did was I selected a PDF, and then I selected a web scraper. So I put that here. All right, we're going to copy that. I'm going to create the 2 PDFs, and then we'll do a web scraper. And again, as you can see, because we have an asterisk next to the node that is required, but in this case, even though it's not required, we're going to add the text splitter. it's really easy to see what needs to be added. And then you go in here. You have text splitter. Now I just saw this one recently. Token text splitter splits a raw text string by first converting the text into BPE tokens, then split these tokens into chunks and convert the tokens within a single chunk back into text. Seems pretty cool. No. There's also this one, so I've used, that's the regular one I use, and they both seem to be working. So what I'm going to do is, I guess we can just use the character text splitter, and we'll take that and connect it to our text splitter here, and I like to move it up so that I'm able to get all of these connected like that to our text splitter. In the text splitter, you can have a separator here. You know what? I'll just go back to the one I used in the actual example so that we don't deviate. There we go. We can select the different type of encoding here, our chunk, and then a chunk overlap, which is just how much of each chunk is going to overlap each other so that there isn't just a strict cutoff at one chunk, which, and by chunk I mean that each of your PDF files and your data that you're going to be scraping is going to be broken down into chunks by this functionality, by this module here, and we're just making sure that these chunks have a very small overlap as opposed to a very hard border. So we'll take the text splitter node, we'll connect this to our documents, and we'll connect this to our web scraper. Now what is going to happen here is we're going to have to fill in a couple of things. We're going to have to fill in our OpenAI API key, okay, and we're going to have to get our Pinecone API key. So this is the actual tile, so we can see that that's what we have here set up, the tiles, and in this model I already have everything filled in. So what I'll do is I'll just go through this here and show you what's happening. So here I have a chunk overlap of 50. I have a couple of PDF files that I've already uploaded. One of them is the result PDF, and the result PDF is just a very small PDF file which talks about describes test plans and test cases that another tool that I've been working on created, which has generated a bunch of test plans and test cases for, in this example, I think it was a shoe selling website. And then in this long, ugly named PDF, it is the result of a Chapter 11 court case, or the current status, or recent status of a Chapter 11 court case with Celsius crypto exchange, crypto bank, whatever scam situation that went on there. And it will show you how to detail. We'll be able to query each of these either together or separately. So and the third document in this situation is going to be our Cheerio web scraper. So a tool that's going to scrape through any website that you want, and we'll be able to chat with that information as well. All three of them are connected to the document side here on the Pinecone upsert document, and here's what the underlying parameters here, the additional parameters are what they look like. And this is actually an important part, that what we're going to do is we're going to specify the metadata parameters for each of these documents. So how this works is when we're uploading to Pinecone, okay, and I'll show you how to create the index here as well in a moment. When we're uploading to the Pinecone database, we have an index name that gets created. The index name gets created in a specific environment, and using certain type of mathematical functions that search through the data. Okay, and then there's a bunch of other stuff here, but the other important thing is the dimensions. So how many dimensions, and you can think of like there, you know, we live in a three-dimensional world with 4 dimensions time, and then so on and so on. This is 1536 dimensions that we need to be specifying, and this is how many dimensions that this database is able to contain and to analyze. So we have an index name here that I created called test, and we have a index info here section that shows us total how many vectors we have, and here it shows our vector namespace that we created. And so each of these vector namespaces, of course this is the vector without any, but we can create multiple vector namespaces that will segregate your data or will index your data in different ways. So in this case, in this situation, we're going to go even one step deeper, which is we're going to segregate our data by the metadata tags. And the metadata tags are going to be specified in our flow chart additional parameters for each of the documents. So hopefully that starts to resonate a bit better as we go on through these examples. So what I can do is I'm going to show you guys just from the beginning, from scratch here, on how to create and deploy the index database and how we're going to be able to use this. So I'm going to delete this guy, and it's just going to say yes, your data will be permanently deleted. So let's delete. Okay, and it's terminating, so let's give it a moment. There we go. So now we're going to create the first index. We're going to create the index test. As I said before, 1536, 1546, oh, 1536. And everything else stays the same. So we did the starter plan, best storage, and you know, you can play around with Euclidean dot product or cosine. Euclidean I think is a good one as well, but for now we're just going to play with the basics and the default. So we'll create the index. Okay, so here we go. We're now back up. We got test, Asia is our environment, we got the metrics here, and we got our dimensions. And as you can take a look at right now, we got total vector 0, so we erased everything. We got no namespace, nothing. So now the next step is I'll show you what we got going on here is in the Pinecone upsert document. This is where we specify our environment, and our environment, there it is, right? Then let's move that here. We specify the index. So the index right there, we just create a test. And now we're going to, well, here, how about this? I do this. I'm going to get rid of the Pinecone namespace and show you what happens when we just use an index with no namespace. And then I'll show you the differences. So at the moment, that's our setup for the Pinecone tile here. And that's where we get all this information, our index name and our environment. So we go back here. And now what we need to do is take a look at the additional parameters on the web scraper and on each of these individual files. And what we can do is we can specify the metadata, and the metadata we can specify certain things like ID, document type, and in this case we're going to specify the document type as URL scrape. All right, it can be anything you wish here. In the case of the PDF files, we have document type PDF, and this is going to be ID 1. So it's going to be document type PDF number 1, and in this case you might have guessed it's going to be document type PDF ID 2. So you can see here, you know, I might not even need the, we click on the edit here, but I might not even need the full scrape. So all you do is give it ID, and then we'll go in here and give it ID 1. Okay, and so we have document type URL and ID 1. That looks like it's proper. We can select how many scrape links limits go down, and we've scraped for relative links. I'm not sure, but I guess that's like the sublinks, and maybe in order not to make this like too expensive, we'll do 5. Okay, so we'll probably do 5 sublinks and whatnot. And in this situation, you then specify a URL. In this situation, I specified a website that I'm familiar with and I use quite often, which is rakit.com, and we're gonna use their support site, and it's AI powered wholesale house flipping site, real estate flipping investing site. So they have this support site here, support doc, and it got a lot of information, and it's a good one for me to play around and scrape with. So that's the URL that I specified here. We got the index, and now we go over here and we click the save chat flow button. Okay, and save the chat flow. No, we don't need that. We got a chat flow save confirmation here. Let's see, anything missing? No. Pinecone API key, OpenAI API key. Where do we get those? Really simple. API keys for Pinecone right here. Create a new one, copy, paste that in. OpenAI API keys, go to platform.openai, account API keys. You can click right here, go view my API keys. You're going to get here. All right, and there's a bunch of API keys that you create. Now keep these API keys, private, because if you accidentally expose them to the internet in a video or so, like myself, the internet boys, they'll find a way to rack up $80 worth of API use real quick. But it's great. I'm at least glad that people got to use some of the tools that I was showing them. So be careful with that. Now, that said, let's take a little pause and take a look at this. Gorgeous, beautiful, incredible looking girl. She does not exist. She is not real. This is generated by Midjourney, and the prompt was a Russian woman, Cyber City, hyperreal, and the style here is set at 250, and this is using the latest Midjourney version, which was 5.1 at the time of this video. Absolutely amazing, absolutely incredible. Midjourney is super fascinating tool, which allows users via a prompt to create stunning imagery that is just mind-blowing, because none of these people, none of these photos exist, none of this exists. And it's just incredible, something worth checking out. So let's get back to business. Now, what are we doing here? We are using our scraper to scrape that rakit.com support site. We got a couple of documents plugged in. We click save, and now we're going to pop open this chat. I'll clear out the chat just so that we can make sure we see everything nice and cleanly. Okay, and now let's take a look at what can we do. We got 3 documents, right? So we got let's start asking it questions, and the question is how can I integrate into a CRM? All right, now, as you can, my expectation is that it's going to pull from Rakit, and it's doing a little shiny shine thing, so that means it's working. My expectation is going to be that it's going to be pulling the information from Rakit, so it's going to know that it needs to scrape that support site. It's going to take a moment to scrape it, and then it's going to give us some details, even with a very limited prompt. So let's give it a moment to return the results, and hopefully it works out. Okay, so we have to modify the query a little bit. I tried it and it timed out, so I need to do a how can I integrate my CRM with RayKit. Okay, so just to show you what happens if I disable RayKit. Okay, just copy this just in case, and I'm going to save. Okay, we got chat flow saved. Excellent. Let's open up the chat and pop that in. Cannot read properties undefined. Didn't really need that, right? Let's do that. Let's see what happens when I disable those. When I disable the web scrape. Okay, so it times out or is unable to find what's going on. So we're going to add back the web scraper, and we're going to pop that back into the document section, the document node. Let's save. All right, and one more time. Let's do how can I integrate my CRM with RayKit. Give it a moment, and this one timed out as well now, which is strange. Let's investigate. Okay, well, something interesting I just discovered on Sidelines is that if you create, I guess there's some kind of a throttle limitation on how many API calls can be made to LangChain or to Pinecone. I don't think OpenAI is the one that's at issue here. Maybe it is. Maybe the OpenAI embeddings are being bombarded a little bit too much here. So it was actually giving me code 400, as you can see, for quite some time, until I gave it a little bit of a pause, and then finally it did come back with you can find instructions on how to integrate your CRM with RayKit, and in the integration section of the knowledge base. Okay, so that was pretty cool. And now let's take a look at what's in the test plan, and hopefully that will reference the document results.pdf, which is the test plan for the shoe store. So let's see what it comes back with there. Now here's what is happening every time I'm running the query here, and while it's looking for it, I'm going to show you. So in Pinecone we have total vectors being shown here, and as you can see, the total vector is 517, but that's split between two namespaces. One is the general no namespace, and the one that I created with the Flowise app, which is the multi-doc chat. And I created that by specifying it here, right? So this is our Pinecone namespace. Yeah, see, again, it's failing with the 400, so I think there's some kind of a limitation on how many times the API can be called, because what's happening is that we're creating embeddings every time I ask for something here. It's creating an embedding and then trying to upload everything into Pinecone. And every time we do something, we run a query or ask that in the chat there, it creates additional vectors. So what we can do to actually mitigate that is create the chat, what I call the chat with vectors flow chart. And the chat with vector flow chart looks something like this, right? So it is Pinecone loading existing index, right? So it's not upserting the document. anymore. It's no longer creating additional vectors. It's just going to read now the vectors that are there, and using this Pinecone load existing index and the additional parameters, this is where we can start to add the metadata filter in order to filter for the specific documents that we created earlier that are now sitting and living here in the multi-doc chat vector store. All right. So how we're going to do that is actually fairly simple. Again, it is a conversational retrieval QA chain. It is the Pinecone load existing index module. And so the vector stores, it's the Pinecone load existing index as opposed to the one we used previously, which is the upsert document. Okay, and this one still has the OpenAI embeddings, so, and the OpenAI chat large language model basically. And so our conversational QA chain is going to look like this, and hopefully we now are going to be actually speaking to the multi-doc chat namespace. Okay, and let's just clear this out, but let's start from scratch, and let's see, hopefully things work out a little better here. But what some ways to integrate my CRM with Rakit. Okay, let's take a look at what happens. And there we go. It came back with batch leads to Rakit.com CRM integration, new property added, Mojo Dialer integration, Rakit CRM to Mojo Dialer integration. Very interesting. Okay, there we go. So it came back with stuff specifically from Rakit, and as you can see, we still have 517 vectors, so nothing was created. It was just pulled out of the database there. And now let's ask it more of reference to the what is the status of the chapter 11. Let's see if this works out, if it understands. All right, took about 20 seconds, but here we go. The debtors are continuing to draft and refine the disclosure statement, blah, 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 legal stuff. All right, awesome. So it's actually now pulling in information from the legal document. And if we were to ask the final one, which is what's in the test plan, which is the results.pdf document, let's take a look at, see if it is able to pick up the third and final one. Okay, and the information came back here, and so we got the, as you can see, we got the test plan now. What are the test in the test plan? The test plan aims to verify the checkout process of the web shoe store. Okay, awesome. So we were able to upload the 3 documents into the vector database. We were able to create the individual metadata, and then so now we can actually limit to the metadata that we created. So if we wanted to chat with only a one specific document or a doc type even, so we can just exclude or include certain documents. So like we can chat with just document ID, and we can do, well, let's see, we had the 2, right? So we need the doc type. All right, and so the doc type will specify, let's do PDF. Okay, and then for our ID, let's just do PDF 2, which is, I believe, was the legal case. Okay, so there it is. And if we did something wrong, come back, just take a look that it's still there, because if you made some kind of a mistake, it won't actually save anything. So there we go. We're going to save now this template. And And let's ask, what is the status of the court case? See if it picks up on that. All right, there we go. It came back with the court has not yet approved the disclosure statement or authorized the debtors to come. So, okay, so it's actually reading that. Now let's see if we can, what is the best way to connect my CRM to RateKit. All right, let's see what happens. And there we go. It failed, right? Because it doesn't really know anything about that one. And now if I was to say the same thing that we gotten earlier, which is what are the tests in the test plan? All right, and let's see what happens. Okay, and here we go. So it came back with more of the legal document. You see chapter 7, liquidation analysis, and others. So it didn't pick up anything about the actual test plan. So now let's take a look at the additional parameters here, and let's set the ID to 1. And we'll come back real quick just to confirm. You see, all right. So let's check the ID 1. All right, perfect. Let's save. Chat flow saved, and oops. I don't need that. And let's see what happens. Boom, it just popped in, and there you have it. The test plan aims to verify the checkout process of the web shoe store. So we changed the ID. We start retrieving from a different document. So I hope that that's starting to make sense. Now, a lot of you have asked, how do I get this actually into an application? It's all fine and dandy over here. Now, there are several ways. One of the ways is you, well, here, let me show you. We have this little button here for API endpoints. And then this window comes up, and it gives us the ability to embed this query in a website or use as an API. So what we're going to do is we're going to use this as an API, and you come over here and you copy this, right? So take a look at what's happening. So it's going to import the Python library in this. We're going to be using Python to build this little application. And as you see, it basically imports the request library, and that's going to be able to handle all the API posts and gets. And so we get a we get this API here, and we're able to make calls to this API in our code with the output. So we'll check it out. We define a query, and we specify a payload that's going to go into the query. We then define response, and the response is going to be the payload from JSON as we do a post using the API URL. And there's going to be our payload. And so what's going to return is the response from the JSON or in JSON form. And we're going to wrap up the output or wrap up the query output in this variable here. So what you can do is you can then copy all this. And this is actually really, really easy if you already have OpenAI API. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in here, all right, and this is, again, this isn't for any of you developers. These are, you know, people like me who are potentially just not straight development, but want to be able to play around with these apps and these tools. And this is going to be the easiest way for you to get into this. And so all you do is you ask GPT-4, so how do I use the following code in my own local application? And you can paste in that, as I did here with the API URL, and it's going to give you a quick instruction on how you can do that. Install the requests and then use this little application. And so with a couple of iterations, I was able to actually create this web app using Streamlight, and we're creating this API chatbot that's actually able to chat with all of our documents that we just uploaded earlier. And a little bit further down, so really, as you can see, the only kind of thing that we're doing here is that we're just printing the output, and it's initializing the application here. And if we were to just copy all of this, all right, and after a couple of iterations, and it said like there were some issues with the server response, but if you were just to grab this code afterwards, just like that, all right, we're going to go into VS Code, and then VS Code, we're going to create a new Python script. We're going to save it. Okay, let's save it as test.py. All right, and so here in this question, we'll specify is that what we had? Let's just remind me. So here's our retrieval one, and the last one, what are the tests in the test plan? So let's just make sure we have 1-to-1. And here, what are the tests in the test plan? All right, so we're going to save that. We're going to open up a new terminal. Where exactly is this saved? It is okay, like that. Okay, and here we got the Python test.py. Stand by. Okay, never mind, don't use the run. So it's Python test.py, and I'm sorry, but I couldn't find the information about the test in the test plan. Please provide a valid URL or more context, and I'll be happy to help. All right, so let's see. What about, oh, I'm sorry. That is not where. So again, this is a very, very basic application where our output of all of this is going to be in the log here. All right, so what is in, let's run this again. Let's see if there's any difference. And so we wait here, and the output's going to be in the log. But with a couple of little iterations through OpenAI, what we can do is we can generate a whole application here. And so as you can see, we have an API URL that we can specify. And then there's some error handling going on over here. Yeah, so it's still not able to find the test. Please provide a valid URL or more context. That's interesting that it's doing that. I apologize for the confusion earlier. I couldn't find, but see, it's actually functioning. So it is doing the proper chat, but we just need to play around with the prompt, I believe. And if we were to go back to the prompt here, let's see what is in the test. Let's see if we can memorize the test plan. I misspelled that, but I'll just leave it. And we save and run again. And now I'll show you the actual app a little bit more. Is that we specify the again the API. We define that the when we send in the API URL, we get the JSON payload. There it is, right? And then the response comes back for as raised for status. So depending on the error type, no, it's still not able to locate this. So just got to play around with the prompt, and I'll do that in a moment and see if I can generate something. So error handling goes on here. Here we initialize Streamlit, and so Streamlit is the web UI application. You can use others other than Streamlit. There is GRadio, or if you want a kind of traditional UI on a local machine, and you can use TK, and I'm sure there's plenty of others. So we list to hold the conversation, create a list to hold the conversation history here. This is where we create the user input. User input is Streamlit text input. Enter your message, submit. You see what the format is here. If the submit button is pushed, add the user input to the conversation history. Here we query the API. This is where if the response is not none, we add the bot response to the conversation history. You can see how the conversation is appended with the bot and in the response. And if not able to respond, then it senses I'm not able to process your request at the moment. So it's not the I apologize for the confusion. It's the sorry, I'm unable to process your request. And then it displays the conversation history. And so this is exactly what comes down in this API chatbot. And still not sure exactly what is loaded here, but let's take a look and see what our results are here. Okay, playing around a little bit longer, I realized that the reason that we were getting this, I couldn't find the information, is because I was still using the old API URL here, which pointed to the actual web app, and the web app itself is going to be using the chat with PDF functionality. So in this case in particular, I updated the URL here. I did a save, and let's take a look at now if we can summarize, but let's see if now we have any improvement. And there's our output. The test plan aims to verify the checkout process of the web shoe store. Boom. It's exactly what we were looking for, and I'm glad you got to see like the ways that, you know, a real tester and a test savant would handle something like this. We need to basically just play around with all the variables in all the different ways, and most of the time it'll work, sometimes it won't. And also in cases there's the majority of your efforts are going to be failures until that one final success. So just keep trying, keep playing around with it, keep debugging, keep reiterating, and eventually you'll get through it. And that's how you're able to do it. So in this final one, you can see it's still processing the summary of the document, and let's wait just a few more minutes, and there it is. And the summary of the document, which we summarize here, is to instruct Blip towards general purpose vision language models with instruction tuning. Fairly advanced subject, and let's see if it summarized it. Instruct Blip is a general purpose vision language model that aims to solve various language domain tasks. It is based on the pre-trained Blip 2 models and incorporates instructions. Boom. It's exactly what this document's about, and we were able to basically create this whole entire API chatbot using OpenAI and some small coding modifications that you can also use OpenAI to learn how to do. But once you start to generate templates in OpenAI, or just the basic kind of structure, you can see how to modify and what needs to be modified in order to create the application that you wish. So hopefully that helps, and hopefully you get to see how this API generated in Flowise is able to then be embedded in an actual application, and we can process a whole bunch of cool stuff with it. If you want a whole lot more examples, just go ahead and find the LangChain handbook. And this is really where all this Flowise, LangChain, agent, LLM stuff, that's where it's all coming from. All of this documentation was going to be so awesome and detailing you how to do everything. So take a look at that when you get a chance. I wish you guys luck. Please like and subscribe, and leave me a message or a comment if you guys had any issues or what you think about this, and if there's anything else with this that you'd like to see me do and perhaps demonstrate. So appreciate your time, and if this was worthy of your time, go ahead, please share it with someone. Appreciate you.